Alright everyone, this is the Q&A session, the Ask Me Anything session of Johannesburg's SharePoint Saturday. Let's flick this around. Get it! I got a nice seat.
Please join us. Everyone else, please join us.
Like a warm beer.
So this is where we're going to ask you a lot of questions. You better get your stuff ready.
So what's your bank account number?
Are we ready?
Absolutely, go for it.
Yeah, it's all ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Has everybody had a good day?
Yes! Yes!
Woo! Excellent. Lots of knowledge sharing, lots of good speaking. So, we thought we would end the day with a panel of these fine ladies and the guys. And we would be chatting a little bit about Microsoft Teams. So Teams has certainly been a huge discussion point today. Various.
Why don't we just go Teams?
He just decided
Why don't
it.
you
So we
just
can
go
do
decide?
Teams.
Okay, we're doing Teams.
Yeah. You can have Teams.
We say Yammer, okay? I don't like Teams.
I want to talk about Rosebud.
Teams.
Teams. Everyone
Yammer is that.
Teams or Yammer?
Okay, what do you want to talk about?
Where's the beer?
Teams it is.
That was the topic that Alice and I discussed.
I want to talk about Stream, dude, okay?
No problem. So let's start with Teams.
There's no Kaizala
So,
socks.
Teams.
We have the
Kaizala's
industry
Teams.
experts over here, experts.
Wow.
So, but I want you guys to be involved, right? I prefer this is not a one-sided thing, and you guys are hunting for knowledge. So I'm going to get the conversation started, and I want you guys to be involved and be asking these guys questions and rack their brains, and let's see if there's anything that they can't answer.
That is not fair.
It certainly is. There's no beer this year's SharePoint Saturday, so there should be nothing that's too challenging.
No.
Okay, so let's start with Teams adoption. New technology that's being rolled out, and unfortunately we see a lot of executives thinking this is the silver bullet for every organization, which it may very well be, but a lot of organizations have tried and failed and are turning it off because it just becomes a hot mess. So, you two ladies, tell us some of the adoption challenges that you're seeing and how we get around them with the deployment of Teams into the enterprise.
Just a second.
Okay, so we don't know.
Let's see. There's the term Teams fatigue. Have you heard of that?
Over-adoption?
Over-adoption, too many notifications, switching between tenants.
Yeah.
I switch between about 4 or 5 on a moment-to-moment basis.
Hourly
Anybody
basis.
tenant switching?
Anyone switching tenants? It's more of a consulting thing, I think.
Consulting.
Different companies.
Yes, for sure. So I think it's, for some of that stuff, it's about learning how to deal with notifications and to focus conversations, focus how you look at the different teams and channels that you have. And I think for me, it's like, do you know how to go in and turn things off? Right? Do you know how to go in and make it so that it works for you and that it's not working your every last nerve, right? So I think that Teams fatigue was a big thing that came up in a lot of clients that have sort of went whole hog all of a sudden, and they were like, that's too much. I'm getting notifications from everything. My email I still use Outlook Task. I still am in Teams. So I think combating that by really understanding the back end of your system and making sure that you're working with your admin to take care of some of those things that they can take care of on the back end for you, and then also understanding it for your own personal use as well.
Absolutely. So I think, I called it over-adoption because I do. When people start using it too much, it's like folders in Outlook or file shares and nested folders. That's over-adoption right there, with people not understanding what it should be used for and they're overusing it for a lot of other things or don't trust the product. For me, a big thing, a challenge that we have in the adoption of Teams, if that's kind of, I'm just making this up as I go, is that people try and force their old ways of working into new ways of product. You cannot migrate your file share into Teams, people. You cannot take those nested folders like that across, that way of working, into that library of Teams. Do you know why? What's the biggest reason why? Do you know why? Search. Because it's only going to search to a certain point. Did you know that? because there's character length limits. So it's folders inside folders inside folders inside folders on a tenant, on a server, under a site, URL, characters. It's going to stop searching. You know what you're going to do? Teams suck. I'm not, no, sorry, it's not Teams that sucks, but let's not go there. You cannot replace all the environments exactly the same into new places. We should be changing the way we do things. We should be flattening things. We should be simplifying things. So that's a big problem for me in Teams adoption as well, that people think it's just work as normal, but just with a new front end, it's purple. That's not the right way to do. So that's something people should be careful of.
So what are the difference between Teams, channels, and private chats?
Really?
Absolutely. Pigeon, Daryl, Jethro?
You guys start, I will finish.
Oh yeah.
Oh my word.
Well, no. You have to know your audience. Who are you trying to talk to? You're trying to talk to your whole team? Do you need to take something off to the side to talk quietly and make a decision before going back to the rest of the team? It shouldn't be a difficult thing to understand. If I want to go talk to Warren personally, I'll go into his office, or we'll go somewhere and find somewhere quiet to talk. If I want to talk to everyone here in our big SharePoint Johannesburg team today, yeah? You're all part of the team? Yeah, then we talk like this. Well, let's bring something else into this, Warren, just to throw some fuel onto the fire. What if we were 2,000 people all trying to talk at each other? Would that be effective communication? No. So think about that when you're starting to use Teams. It's okay to have big teams, but there has to be some guidance around how you have those discussions. This is when you start to separate things into channels. And if we think about how some adoption tips for Teams, we need to think about how we work, how we are grouping things together, who are we talking to. As a team, as a project, do we need to break these things up into little separate tasks? Do we need to focus on that and keep it all in one space? Then that's when we start to use your channel. Shape it around the natural activities that people, will conduct. Don't come up with some artificial name or some way of addressing things separately. We have phases in projects, we have different roles in projects, then make the channels match the way that people naturally work. Give it a go.
So, Alistair, you and Lorian did a debate the other day around...
Did you watch it?
I did. Yeah. I
That's
think we
the
had
one
one view, if I remember correctly.
Oh my word.
You missed the 0 and the 1 in front of that. You were the 101st view.
So, I think the number was 5,000 members per team, right? If I've updated it, if I remember correctly. Give us some thoughts around that. That's a lot of people to be added to a team.
You really want my opinion?
Absolutely.
Okay. Teams is a wrapper for Office 365 groups. So if you want to know about groups, go look at Teams. That's all it does. That's what they did. How do we build on top of Office 365 groups? We create an interface to it, and boom, Teams group. Outside of being that point that competes against Slack. 5,000 users inside of a team. How many people do you have inside a Yammer? What's the difference? What's the difference, right? So when you start looking at dealing with thousands of users, it's not a communication, right? It's not a conversation. There's no bidirectional communication. And talking to Daryl's point, it's what you need to understand your audience. If it's a conversation you're having, coming back to your earlier question, the one-on-one chat versus a private channel versus a public channel in a team. And a public channel in a team is actually not a public channel that's limited to the people that's in the team. So there's no public channels, which is weird that you're giving something a name called private channels. And that's rolling out to tenants now, actually. So coming back to 5,000 users, yes, that's the new limit. If you're doing broadcast, it's larger, 10,000.
10,000 for a live event.
Live event, there we go. Which you can do in Teams. 5,000 users in a channel that allows people to chat back. Can you imagine that?
I think WhatsApp group.
Yeah?
Now, there's some tooling on the back end for the IT pros, the 3 that's still left in this room. You can switch stuff off, like no chats. Now, we get to the larger conversation, which was in Warren's presentation about inner-outer loops. And are we really going to use a org-wide channel because you've got 5,000 users to have a conversation with all the users? Or are you going to use a product like Yammer because you own it, because you want to push communication to the organization? If you've got 5,000 users in a channel, it's not really for collaboration. It's there to, I've got a message from HR that everyone needs to know about, and I want to deliver that message to 5,000 users. And it really comes down to what tool do you want to use. If you enjoy the user experience of Facebook, use Yammer. If you enjoy the user experience of Slack, use Teams. And this is really where it becomes the Jacques Callis of IT. And everyone in the room gets that, right? Yeah.
No.
Another obscure.
Anywhere outside the country, I feel like a comedian.
When
But,
you're just talking about like reading your audience.
Thank you, Mark.
anyone?
Read your audience.
Read my audience.
Yes.
I just did that, right? Jacques Callis is known as the all-rounder in cricket, for those that don't know who he is. And for the people under 27 in the room.
I'm like, okay, what?
But think of Office 365 as that. Being able to understand when to use Teams versus Yammer and what product would work for the personas in your organization.
But don't you think, I mean, so for so long, like, we all love SharePoint, right?
Yeah.
Right?
No.
Okay,
It's not
whatever.
called SharePoint.
I don't want to hear about it. But like, we have this thing called SharePoint that we all were forced or loved to use that sort of did it all-ish, right? And then we got Yammer in an acquisition, and it was like here. And so a lot of people did adopt that. And then we have got this new thing, Teams. You know, like people made SharePoint work for whatever they needed. You know what I mean? Like we made it work, and we put in, there was a news feed here and a this and a that, you know, trying to make it work. And I think that Microsoft, in building Teams, literally as a compete towards this crazy millennial thing called Slack that was going bananas. Same thing with Trello for Planner, right? That was the compete there. It's like, oh, they got these cards and it's great and stuff. So making these things that are called this loop that you might have seen in some of our presentations, like that's the making sense of this in order to try and get that. It's marketing speak in a lovely way, and I'm a marketer, right? So I'm like, yeah, I get it. But it is, some people don't have the whole loop. Some of you sit in SharePoint and maybe don't have the Yammer piece of it. We all have email, right? I'm making the loop right here. You can see me, you know, like, you know what I mean? And then this Teams is this new piece of the loop here, right? So, I don't know. I feel like it is about understanding your audiences, right? And mapping those audiences to this loop thing that we've been talking about and that Microsoft is putting out to explain it.
Yeah,
right?
but here's the thing, right? In my opinion, we're always focusing, oh, we have to look at the audience and we have to do this, right?
Yeah.
The thing where you always have to start with, and it doesn't matter if it's email, Yammer, Teams, whatever you define on your own, is like, what problem are you solving, right? If you have a problem and it contains 7,500 people, and Teams is the best way to approach it, use Teams. Even though that Microsoft, and it might talk against my own stuff, says, hey, maybe if you use Yammer, you get a better experience and stuff, or whatever, you have to fully understand what works in your organization, what problem you're trying to solve. And it goes back to, we haven't brought it up, but I will, same with private channels, right? Everybody's like, well, do we really need private channels? I think for the last 18 months, there has been so much good stuff been told about it and so much BS.
Does everybody know what that means? The private channels and Teams?
Okay.
Explain.
Yeah, so real
There's
quick,
people
if you
don't know
create a
what that is.
team, right, you always start with one channel. It's called general. Then you can create your own channels. What happens is every channel becomes available to everybody in your teams. A lot of people have stated that it would be good if you could create a channel where you could reduce the amount of people that have access to it and not an identical copy to the people that are a member of your team. So let me give you an example. You could have a team that is marketing, right? And you would have one channel that is marketing management, and that is only your managers within the marketing team, right? And not everybody in marketing has access to that. But it goes back to what are you trying to solve? What are you trying to do? What problem do you have where that potentially might be a fix for? And if that's the way that you want to go about it, fine. Another organization with the same structure as you have might choose to do that in Yammer because they feel that Yammer is the best way. So I think you always have to make that decision based on where you're at in your path towards digital transformation or modern workplace or whatever you want to call it. And going back to what you told this morning is like, where are they with the digital literacy? How far involved are they? Are they willing and able to make those choices and that adjustment to use that specific tool? If you spend a lot of time in building up Yammer, maybe you should not be full on with Teams right now, right? If you haven't done Yammer yet, and you would have to implement both scenarios at the same time, maybe that's too much for your end users, and you might have to make a choice. So these are all things that I think you have to take with you, but I always like to start as like, what am I trying to fix?
Yeah, no, thanks for reiterating that because it is. It's like, what does somebody already have? Most of us aren't starting with a brand spanking new nothing, right? No computers with nothing on them, right? So it's like, where are you at and what problem are you trying to solve? You might not have a piece of the loop, right?
So my last question before I hand out to the audience to start asking questions. So there was obviously an announcement about Kazala this week.
Yes.
And being integrated to Teams. What are your thoughts around this? Do you see any challenges?
So forget that it's being integrated into Teams. Kazala is now available to everyone that has an Office 365 team.
Does everybody know what it is? Tell everybody what it is.
Kazala is WhatsApp for Office 365.
It's like WhatsApp with governance.
Well, it actually means WhatsApp, what's up in English. Yeah, that's Kazala the term, if you translate it back.
You've done a lot of Indian translations.
So think about it this way. When you join an organization, chances are there's a WhatsApp group for your team, right? That's how you communicate informally or even formally in your organization, right?
If you're outside the United States, it's not as prevalent.
This
WhatsApp is not.
Johannesburg.
I know what I'm saying though. Is that I'm just saying. I'm saying though. You all use it, but it isn't. WhatsApp is not as prevalent in the U.S. Just as a point, it's not.
Noted.
Yeah.
Anyhow, coming back to WhatsApp, we all use it, right? Because it's easy, it's there, we can have a personal conversation with whoever we want to, and then we can go into a group where we're talking about work. The problem with WhatsApp currently is that there's no way of managing the content that's in there. So the content's taken, it's externalized already. What Kazala allows you to do is to still create these groups, similar user experience. It's the same as WhatsApp, that's why it's called WhatsApp.
In India.
But, last one. At Mumbai or is it in Bangladesh?
Bangladesh.
Can't believe we're getting on a bus for a whole week together.
Hey?
I know.
I don't know what dialect it is. Anyhow, you are now able to use the tools that you use in Office 365 inside of WhatsApp. So I can monitor things, I can send announcements from the marketing group. I want to tell people.
It's in Kazala.
What?
It's not on WhatsApp, it's in Kazala.
Of course there's an API to WhatsApp. What are you talking about? Did we not just say? Why do you have to interrupt?
Because I like to interrupt you.
It's called the inner loop, and it might be.
I called it WhatsApp.
I'm the outer loop, just for the record.
Well, where does that loop?
Somebody's the
Where does that
center
loop
of the
fit? What audience are we trying to reach with Kazala?
I don't know. That's a.
So coming back to what I was saying, thank you, Warren, for interrupting me. You can now replace your WhatsApp groups, which you can't manage, with a tool like Teams, because Kazala is becoming Teams. Does that answer your question?
I don't know, it's awesome.
If I can add to that, and even on my side, when Teams was launched, we were at the MVP Summit, so like 2016 November or something. Okay? And I was pretty upset because I was like, what the hell, Microsoft? We already don't know what to do with Yammer. We're really not using SharePoint right. So now there's another thing that we don't know when to use it, okay? And everyone did that when to use what thing. We all wanted this guidelines where this little flow chart tells us if it's this, then use that. If it's this, then use that. And it's not that easy, okay? Just you have to make those decisions yourself. What I like about the idea of Kazala, so regardless of whether we have WhatsApp or not, is that there is times that I chat faster in a certain type of medium. So think of the different communication tools you have. You have emails, and there's specific things that you use emails for. You're not going to send an all company-wide email out that says your boss is really miserable on Mondays, okay? Not a good platform. So you've got to choose your platforms for specific messaging, and some of them works faster. What I like about Kaizala, and especially the fact that it's going to come back, Teams for me is more, so where Outlook is a bit more structured, Teams is a little bit less. It's still like a whole conversation that you start and more, and I don't want to call it formal incorrectly, but the Kaizala thing, if I can have that, that's much faster. Who's Twitter users in this room? So the difference for me between like Twitter and LinkedIn is exactly that. I absolutely prefer Twitter when it comes to sharing messages at conferences. It's just fast, it's small, it's a little bit of characters, and that's what Kaizala is going to bring in for me into the team side, is being able to do very fast conversations like this, but it still stays in the same place. It's just a different way of communicating.
What we haven't talked about with Kaizala is first-line workers.
Exactly.
Right? Our organizations, we have so much money to give people E1 licenses and E3 and E5. But in retail, think about all the people that might be in Burger King, for example. Are we going to give them all email and this and that and that? No, we're not. So they start to use applications like WhatsApp because you can join with a mobile. And that's all I need to communicate to my staff. All I need is, here's the schedule, here's a document, here's a photo of the cooker that you didn't clean properly last night. Or here's something that we need the boss to look at. It's simple, it's easy to connect to and use, and it addresses the need for first-line workers because that's all they need. And all they need is their mobile phone. And that's where Kaizala fits in. How that translates into where it connects with Teams, seems to be gobbling up a lot of things. But we expect to see a simpler experience for Teams for those first-line workers, where they're not overwhelmed by all this additional choice. All they need is somewhere to chat with their team, with their boss, to swap shifts around and see who's going to do what.
Do a survey.
Yep.
And it's also about thinking about records management and going back and looking for things. I get business requests in WhatsApp, in Facebook message, somebody hit, and there's no governance, there's no way to track it, and the only way to have a true CYA email is an email, right? To prove something, right? Not that we like to have to do that, but a lot of times you do. So with Kaizala being a business application, you can also start diverting people as Office 365 users to the business application and get out of my Facebook message, ask me for a quote, right?
I hate it when that happens.
This is for cat pictures.
Good problem to solve.
Right? Send me a cat video. But what? You know what I mean? Because then I don't remember where it happened. Where was that? And I waste my time searching for stuff, can't find it, all of that sort of thing. So you probably know more about that security backend stuff as far as retention, but I think that's part of it as well.
Fall Plan's 9 DLP, by the way. It's well done. I'm excited about it.
There's a question at the back. Sorry, you put your hand up earlier. Go ahead.
The question here is obviously different users, different age group adopt certain applications faster than others. Firstly, would you suggest that you give them the basket of services, or rather that they can decide and you see what is flowing in the company or not? Or alternatively, you try and push them in a certain direction. Now, saying that, is there case studies, and then I want to know what kind of a user adoption rates for these different applications Microsoft have.
Yes, I think Alistair. Sorry.
She's
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So I've definitely got some serious thoughts on age groups and adoption, as well as intuitive software and adoption. So people will say to me that older people don't adopt things so well, and it actually doesn't. We do learn different. I'm an older person. I'm 44. Okay. Sure.
Thank you for your
I
openness.
said older,
and honesty.
don't bark up that tree. I didn't say old.
Older.
But let me tell you what the difference is, because I have a lot of people come to me and say, Trace, the new people coming into my company just eats up technology. They're just like, nah. The older people really struggle. I'm like, sweetie, let's just understand something well. So let's give you an example. I can give my 2-year-old an iPad and they just go click, 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 and it's done, right? Why do they adopt things so fast? because that little cupcakes never worked with Windows or with DOS or with Lotus 123 or with Office 2003 or Windows Vista or something, okay? We build neurological paths to different muscle memories to different apps and services we've used, which is why we kind of got to roll it back. Because this older person, when Microsoft makes an update again in SharePoint, my brain's going to keep on telling me the settings wheel's on the right, even when they've moved it left. So yes, firstly, that's why we learn different. Not because we're more stubborn or, see, I'm just protecting myself, but it's because I have more business experience and more muscle memory with things. So you have to kind of address it a little bit different. Older people with more business experience.
Induction style, that example you gave a couple
Yeah, induction style. Older people tend to take longer to learn, but it's because we have so much other value that we have to carry around with us as well. Also called baggage in some places, but you know, whatever you want to call that. So let me just talk about the intuitive a while, because that's another thing. A lot of people brings that into the conversation where they say, if it's intuitive enough, people will just use it easily. It's the same conversation. It's not about intuitive. Something, if it's the first time you've ever used it, is much easier to use if you've used 5 versions of it. That's just the case. So user adoption, statistics is difficult there. You have to put more effort in it. It's just like that. But it's pros and cons. I'm going to take all that business experience that comes with it, all the empathy, all the sympathy, all the good logic that comes with it, and a little bit longer to learn a new technology. But they also are much wiser, just like sometimes.
Can I just step in here? So to answer your question, because I know she waffled on for a bit.
Whatever.
Office
No, you don't get to talk if you're going to put down on that. She answered the question.
Think about how many more questions we could
We're going
get
to
in.
share a bus together next week, and I'm going to make it
Just a
hell.
precursor to the bus.
Okay, all right. You answer it your
So
way.
case studies for what you're talking about, Office 365. Yeah, there are a few case studies that will help organizations. There's also, if you go to the productivity library, you can actually filter by product or use case, and you'll be able to find the case studies that you're looking for. Right?
Oh, about age group, like what you asked for? Is that
I'm
what
not
you mean?
finished speaking.
Oh, sorry.
I'll wait until you finish. Right, thank you. All right, so that's the first thing. So you'll be able to pick up those case studies for the different things. My mother is 83. She's 83. Okay. It's about necessity. And Jethro was saying earlier on, if you have a use case, if there's a reason for using it, people will use it. My mother wants to see me and her grandchildren. She's on Facebook. She doesn't know. She'll phone me 3 different ways. From a normal phone, from WhatsApp, or Facebook. She'll communicate Facebook Messenger. She'll communicate that with me as well. She doesn't know the different platforms, but she knows if she clicks on this icon, she can send a message. And in your case, from a user perspective, there's got to be a use case for using a tool. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how much you give them a 300-page white paper or you send them for training. If there's no value in them using the tool and it doesn't make their lives better, no chance for adoption.
Jethro, you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to add two things. One, I think it's crucial that you always have to start, especially with end users, what's in it for me, right? Like, I work in a certain way, I'm happy with that, and yeah, there might be some issues, but I've found ways around it. So why is the new platform better? That's one. 2, around training, because we always, and I kind of hate the concept, is we always intermix certain concepts together. Change management, user adoption, user training, right? We interuse them and they're not same, not even close. From a training perspective, right? Different people learn different ways. A lot of smart people that are in the education system know that. There's 4 different learning styles with, and you can look that all up. One thing that I always hate with people who are doing training, they look at it from a traditional IT training methodology. Teacher in the front, you're sitting there, click there, do this, do that, do that, do this. Oh, you don't get it? Let's do this again, right? And certain people love to experience it on their own, collect the information, process it. Some people love that specific concept. Other people have other things they prefer. I think what is crucial is that every training that you do, right, is try to identify what learning styles these people have. And in your training, address the different learning styles in different ways. I think you should talk to Heather as well. She has an amazing product that does just-in-time learning as well, where you get the right information when you need it at the time that you actually are looking for it. That is super crucial because you're going to do your basic training, and if people not immediately go into that process and do it on a daily basis, it just disappears. And getting a reminder by having the right information, and only that information when you need it, just brings everything back. So whoever is doing trainings, right, look up learning styles of Kolb, K-O-L-B, right? There's tons of assessments where you can identify and how you need to approach them. That's one. And then two is like get some good software that supports your people along the way, even when the training is done.
So just to end off on this question, Daryl, is something you want to
Yeah,
add?
yeah.
before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, two ways to really do this in a custom way, a way that fits your organization and culture. Proof of concepts. Start by trying something out with a small group. You'll learn a lot from that. If it's a real use case, you know, you'll learn to see how does someone use a team? How does this fit in a project? And you can start to shape and guide them with that. The other aspect of learning and supporting that, Jethro's talking about providing resources that are relevant to your people and you recognize them. It's not just vanilla stuff from Microsoft. The other thing that's really important, I think we're experiencing this today, is the power of community and learning together and sharing our stories. So as we're experiencing those tools and proof of concepts, we're trying things out, we're sharing what works and what doesn't. And we're passing that on to the next team or the next group of people that would like to investigate this tool. What worked for you? Well, we talk this way in our team. We talk this way in our business unit. So this suited for us. What about you? And if we're sharing those stories somewhere, then we can all learn from that, because that's how we're learning today, aren't we?
Yeah. Awesome. Marlon.
Yeah, I just had a question around the traditional records management, document management, information architecture, like what we were originally taught within the SharePoint framework, and what businesses use it for. What's the future within that constraints with businesses that were originally taught to follow certain power plans and structures to be compliant, and where do these tools fit in now going forward? Because I don't see a lot of people I don't see the need to use a lot of metadata and complex file structures, because the way we find data 5 years ago versus how we find information now is
Flattened out. It's more discovery based as opposed to rigid structure. Understand?
So I think when you talk about information architecture and records management, it's two totally different things. We also look at, and strangely enough, it's available today, real time, better than what was ever in SharePoint, file plan structures is available inside of retention labels in Office 365. Brand spanking new. So you can now build your file plan in Office 365. And that's, I need alone time with it because I'm that excited about the fact that it's new, and it's the biggest thing to hit records management for Office 365 since Microsoft Office SharePoint. Right? When they had a third-party company come in and make sure that the record center was DoD certified. Coming back to information architecture, because of the way we search, information architecture, I talked about it, content, information methane and content black holes. Because it doesn't matter where you store the content, it's discoverable, right? Bing for Business is now Microsoft Search. So metadata doesn't, it's not that it doesn't matter anymore, but you don't have to do a lot around it unless you really want to identify that document or that image without content being inside of the document. Because if the content's inside of the document, you don't have to describe the document, right? So it's important. I'm excited about records management going forward. I'm waiting for multi-stage dispositions inside of Office 365 as part of a retention label. But now you can build your file plan for the first time in about 10 years inside of Office 365.
What I like about the compliance center is that those records management principles is applied across all products within 365. So remember, you had file records management policy, email, which was managing Exchange, and you had SharePoint records management, and you had PowerShare records management. So if you have labels now, it's FYI, but what I discovered is that those labels apply across all emails.
It's about
gecko
geckos.
policy on a certain piece of content, whether it's an email, Teams, Kaizala, or on SharePoint, that same labels apply.
And by extension, and I think Al will pass that on as well, is there's actually now labels within Azure that will take it outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, right? And it's not just labeling anymore, it's also adding protection to it and making sure that your content is safe. Going back to a little bit of what you were saying about labeling and finding things and all that good stuff, I think the tendency that we're starting to, or the direction that we're starting to see, especially with machine learning and AI, is that it's just, we just have to pretty much tell them what we want, right? And if machine learning has taught itself far enough down the road where it can like pick up certain things, like right now you can actually give a picture to machine learning and say, find all the pictures of Jethro. Even though that it has no metadata, no whatever, it will just pick that all up and do it automatically for you. Is it going to be all solving? Of course not. I think there's still going to be that nice equilibrium between all these different technologies. But what we're seeing is that, yeah, it just becomes less and less important unless it is important for your business.
So that was my last question, just to piggyback on that, is that how do you teach the governance now? Because in as much as an organization might be in the financial services, they have certain governance rules. With all the modern tools, it actually accomplishes the governance, but they are used to having a structure that we need to have 5 levels of folders, we need to have certain metadata fields with certain retention applied to it. So it's a lot of user adoption and training that needs to happen.
Well, why should they change?
No, that's what I'm saying. It's just about the change management is that you don't have to create a complex file structure anymore.
Why not?
Why should you?
Because that's how they work, right?
What's in it for them?
What's in it for
What's in
them?
it for them is that they can upload a file immediately without having to add multiple fields of metadata. Because that's what user adoption was hindering user adoption.
But
I used to upload a file to a file share and it's there. Now I need to upload it to SharePoint and I have to add 5 metadata fields. It takes me 5 times longer and then I forget to check it.
So why are you adding the metadata? Is it for compliance? To be compliant?
Yeah. So this is the traditional.
So the problem with every company in South Africa, that nobody's compliant when it comes to records management. That's the first thing. 34 metadata elements. That's according to the records management. Yeah, to the NAS thing. 34 metadata elements. It's not a record if it isn't there. So I don't actually care what any company does around records management. You are all non-compliant. All right? If they work the way they work, like Hummingbird tells you to work, because a lot of people use Hummingbird, let them do that. Why change? Because they believe they're compliant. The auditors that come in every year looks at the same thing. Because now, forget about changing the way the company works. How do you change the auditors? Because there's your problem, because that's the fear, right? The auditor comes in, but hey, you don't have 12 metadata elements associated with this content type or this document type, you're not compliant. So you're going to have to start there. Don't change. If it ain't broke.
No, but you change the audit stuff. So it's like, what were you audited on last week? Show me the results. Based on that audit, that's how you design. Because you say, well, you were not audited on how many metadata fields you actually do.
You don't know that until you find it.
I think there's a hybrid approach. You use the old style and new people can adopt the new style of doing it because you have tools and automation that can take care of everything for you. So just understanding that balance between them.
Okay, so I think let's wrap this question up. Tracy, last
I think
point.
just a quick one. So, I mean, I also come from compliance backgrounds, like for Shake and all of those things. So there's certain things that we do for certain reasons. But please always ask yourself the following question, because I agree with why change things. But firstly ask us, why did we do it that way? A lot of the categories and metadata we used in the past was to make search better because search sucked. Okay? So we did it. Now you can take a photo, upload it to OneDrive, and search for the text in it within a minute. Okay? That completely changes the ball game. So that also changes how much metadata we add. I'm not talking about physical compliance structures, but firstly, understand why you did it that way in the past. The second thing I really want everyone to understand is that we need to evolve. Our departments are halved, our workloads are doubled. A lot of times we cannot keep on doing things the way we did them in the past because they take too long. So you have to shave things as well, even if we did it that way in the past, because our technology doesn't anymore require us to do such complex things. So please always investigate it. Don't always just keep on doing things like you did in the past because it causes less disruption. That's also not the right
Faster,
route to take.
better, smarter.
That's it.
The Standard Bank paid for that, sorry.
No.
Just Brandon. Ian's got a question.
More a statement than a question. Microsoft have enlisted an online portal called EDX to do a service adoption specialist training course. Now, if you want to write the tests and get the certificate, it's $99, but the actual content is free to be audited by anyone.
Yep.
And they go through, how do I get Expos buying? How do I get Man on the Streets buying?
Yep.
How do we get the information out? It covers everything you could ever want to know about, and their case study is Teams in this training course. So EDX, and search for service adoption specialist.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah,
Good
grab it.
resource.
It's there.
I can vouch for it.
Awesome.
I'll look at that guy.
Any other questions?
Yeah, sorry. Alan Struda.
Yes?
Sala and information protection.
Not there yet.
How are they wrapped together?
They're not.
That
Adam.
answers that?
Adam.
Sorry.
So now that it's coming to Teams,
Yeah.
also Teams from an IP perspective, it's not there yet either because of the way Teams is structured. So think about it this way. I sit in my tenant, you sit in your tenant. You ping me in my tenant, and we have a conversation in Teams. Where's that content stored? Yeah. So it's coming.
Okay, where is it?
What? Half of it is stored in Exchange, your chat, and the other half is stored in my Exchange. Yeah.
It depends. If it's a chat, right? A part will be stored in your Azure Cosmos DB, and a part in my Azure Cosmos DB, and maybe in part of his if it's a three-way conversation. If it's a part of the conversation in your channel, then it's an Exchange.
So it's called the.
That's why you should be in my session.
It's called the office.
Sorry.
Anything else about your session that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, it was the best one out there.
We'll see, we'll see.
Oh, I don't trust these evaluations.
I created it, I can do whatever I want.
Somebody was already scripted to cheat, so.
So, no, it's not available in Kaizala. The information protection around chat, because that's the only thing you have to worry about is chat, right? So it's right now, there's redaction. If you came to my session, you would have known this.
Oh my word! If you get your
I did DLP redaction in my session too.
Yeah, but it's really about if you put a credit card number and
Yeah,
it's
they saw
sensitive
that in
information.
action.
In your session.
Yeah.
Good luck on the bus.
Yeah, Teams. Yeah.
Are you doing Teams compliant?
Yeah, I
But
did.
they don't know who you are when they ask you for feedback. Clearly, you don't have any feedback with you.
It's because you have the weird accent and I speak American.
wow.
Yeah, English second language sitting over there.
Absolutely.
All right, so it's just before 4, and we're going to get to the draws and all the rest of it. So I think to wrap up the panel, firstly, thank you to all of you guys. Outlook on biggest technology shift by the end of this year, each of your views. And you guys have got more of an inside track into this from a Microsoft perspective than the rest of us plebs out there. So Jethro, let's start with you.
For me, it will be the combination of collaboration and security. So there will be a more emphasis on teams and collaborating together. But I think the world is looking for better security, better protection of the content. Look at what happened in Europe with GDPR. The US and California is already approaching the same kind of thing. Same will happen in this area of the world as well. So that combination.
You've got Poppy.
Papia. You're going to get shouted at. It's called Papia Information Act.
Oh my word.
Papia.
So that, so the fact is going to be we want to collaborate more, we need to collaborate more, but at the same time we don't want our data to be out there. So how do we combine these two things together?
Fine balance.
Yeah.
Cool. Cupcake?
Biggest technology shift.
Yep.
Okay, so I think for me, think of how we've started ordering everything from home, food, just sitting there. Well, we don't have Amazon yet, but we'll. Anyway, but you get what I'm saying, okay? I really see that as the biggest change coming, is that we're going to start achieving more right where we are working already. Instead of leaving the place where I work every day to navigate to other apps and services, and that's what Teams is bringing for me. That's going to fully come to shift, I think, for people to understand, is that I now have this virtual desktop right here that I don't have to leave to access and work with everything that I want to work with. I'm excited for that. For people to start understanding that they don't have to leave that comfortable space anymore to still achieve what they want to achieve.
Just stay home alone.
Mm.
Heather?
I wrote a blog about this, and now I can't remember what I wrote.
It was a wine night.
I know, right? You know, I sort of feel like the shift in a way, I don't know, I kind of feel there's a little bit of like a backlash against the technology in a way. That people they're just like, there's so much noise, and there's so much happening, that it's like, I just want to get the basics down so I can do my job and deal with my kids and like maybe do something fun or have a date night or whatever. And I know that we all sit on this sort of bleeding edge cusp of technology, but I feel like there's, not just in technology, but like politically and as people, there's like these major shifts. There's always major shifts, but there's major shifts happening right now in the world in so many ways. And here in South Africa, seeing what's happening in your country, it's like, I think people are tired of the BS and tired of being forced and pushed to do things. Like, can I just type a document, you know?
It's like frog rock.
Yeah, it's like a fire, I don't know what that means, but I was like, I don't know what that hand gesture meant, but if it was like drinking from a fire hose, I'm in. So it's not going to stop, and I don't know if that's a shift in technology, but I feel like it's a shift in our like emotional consciousness as people, and that to me, more humans in tech and more of that kind of thing. I hope to see more of that in every presentation that we see, and every product that comes out, and anybody that's trying to sell us anything. Because I want to demand that as a consumer myself. I'm tired of being lied to. I'm tired of having flashy shit in my face. You know, I want it to work. Okay, anyway. So, but you know what I mean? I don't know. I just feel like that to me is a shift that maybe I'm being hopeful.
Human to human.
Yeah, human to human, you know? So maybe that's my hope.
Edge to edge.
You know?
Cool.
Like it.
Yes.
Don't drink it, son.
Alistair?
You done speaking?
Oh my word.
Let's not interrupt you.
Adaptive cards is the future.
What?
Cards?
Adaptive cards. Adaptive cards is the future, not
Learned
Teams.
a new word.
Teams is now being painted as the everyday and everything source, right? All roads lead to Teams. And yes, I agree with Tracy. If you had a digital
What?
cat,
That's called progress.
You see, you've got to tweet it out.
I'm going to have that tattooed on my arm.
notice I haven't finished my sentence, but you're
Oh.
really excited.
Oh, there's the big buzz coming.
So, yes, we all want the single point of entry, one version of the truth, and we can access everything, which used to be our desktop, because that's what it was. And now we take a new paintbrush and we give it a name, we call it Teams, and all roads lead to Teams. It's the everything source, right? And I hate that. I want to take applications to where people are, the messenger. And you can do that for the developers in the room, all three of you, through the use of adaptive cards. So if you go to adaptivecards.io, you can see Microsoft is spearheading this new way to provide information in all of Microsoft's backend applications through the use of adaptive cards.
So it's a little
hold on, I'm
feature
not
inside
finished.
of Teams.
I'm not finished. I'm not finished. So as much as she wants you to go to Teams, and as an ECM practitioner for 20 years, we all try to get you to go to SharePoint. No one went. It's the same thing right now.
27.
All right. So if your user lives in Outlook, they can function with an adaptive card. If they function in Teams, they can function in an adaptive card. You can push adaptive cards and information panes into Word, into PowerPoint, into Excel. And it's built once, and because it's an adaptive card, it doesn't matter about the user experience. It's not like HTML Canvas or traditional web templates.
Okay.
There's a
Interesting
Sharpie.
concept.
Is this the web part for everything?
That's what it sounds like.
Kind of is.
Right.
It's like a Monopoly card
Universal
that's
search.
dynamic.
Take a chance.
Take a chance, get out of jail, buy some real estate.
That's an app or something.
Daryl?
Derail the conversation. I think we're seeing this arriving now, and it is search from anywhere. I have it on my Surface. I've got the latest builds that are coming, and I can go up to the taskbar and I can search, not just for files, but for people, for how to do things, for content. Search is coming to wherever I am. And
like adaptive cards, right?
Like perhaps.
It's a good search for
perhaps. But I will often get overwhelmed with choice and context changing and people wanting my time, and because I'm a nice guy, I tend to say yes too much. I tend to say yes too much.
Actually.
He is a nice guy.
He always
the
says
fact that he
yes.
says he's a nice guy doesn't.
So if you need money, talk to him.
But what I struggle with is how do I get back to my focus point? And we've got tools like Teams and that and groups and whatever that are supposed to give us focus so that we can go into a channel and focus on something, but it still relies on how we use these tools. But search is going to be a new thing back into my arsenal too. To be able to, I'm sitting here right now, I don't even have to leave the app that I'm in. You know, I might not even be in Teams, I could be in PowerPoint, and I'm like, oh, well, what was Jethro's number again? Oh, right, I'll give him a call from there. And then it goes and uses the correct application. The big dream that we've all had, and Microsoft too, is that we don't have to think about what to use when. We just, wherever we are, and we do what we need to do, and we do it. And that's going to be search driven.
You can supercharge that with adaptive cards, by the way.
Right.
Oh my God. How about, yeah. Wow.
Can somebody like get that URL real quick before he does it tonight?
Good. So, guys, just from my side anyway, a big thank you. A lot of international guys out this show, which I think has been fantastic. Daryl, all the way from New Zealand, can bring the sheeps with him.
She's got the sheep.
Heather, if you're all the way from New York, was your last stop before getting here, I think. Jethro, all the way from Seattle, and Tracy and Alice all the way from Centurion.
And put it this way, we need a visa to get a freaking Centurion. They don't.
So I think we're going to be giving some prizes away. No, right? Or I'm going to give a prize. I'm going to go grab
We've got prizes.
And are we giving anything else? Any other prizes? Oh, sorry, and Adam, all the way from the UK, via Italy, with a couple of run-ins with the weather.
He's not even listening to
He's
you.
not even listening
No,
to
it's
you.
not, but thank you for...
You're bozo.
Can I add something very, very quickly? Can I just please add something? And Alistair corrected me this morning, but I want you to think about that when you see people at conferences. So there's community conferences. This is a community conference. When you don't pay a ticket to go into a conference, there's a lot of people behind the scenes working their bums off to make that possible, so you don't pay a ticket to go into a conference. Like this morning, I just said, so flew them in or something. Let me tell you what, people like this, and a lot of times it's us going there, these people travel at their own cost. They pay for themselves to be here. They sort their own stuff, their flights, their accommodation, their food. I'm not buying food. It's not you get that? These people are, because my neck this way is just Heather's been nice to me. And that's amazing. And I want to give a round of applause for you guys to come up here.
This is my first SharePoint Saturday, and I had to come halfway around the world to attend. But it has been awesome.
To the best country.
Yes, we'll do some prizes,
Yeah.
and then we'll share parts.
True.
Really? You don't have one in New Zealand?
I'm going to work on it, man. We have digital workplace conference, but it's...
Yeah, it's different.
So just while everyone gets their stuff together, I write a flow that was looking at tweets that was running out.
Streaming to
So
YouTube.
I don't even know if we have a prize ready, but at least it kept you here.
But good
You
point.
know what, attendance is important. But, so Anna, is Anna